Kale had never seen a fruit like it. It shimmered with colors he had never known existed, swirling between deep violet and bright gold. Its scent was sweet and strange, carrying a fragrance that seemed to sing to him. The marketplace of Vithera was alive with beings of all shapes and sizes, but this fruit seemed almost alive. He hesitated for only a moment before he lifted it from the stall. The vendor, a short, four-armed alien with green-scaled skin, chattered excitedly, offering Kale a bargain. Kale didn't understand the language fully, but he understood enough to know that taking the fruit without permission could lead to trouble. He smiled awkwardly, reaching into his bag to pay, but in his fascination he bit into the fruit before he could hand over the credits. The taste exploded in his mouth. Sweet, tangy, and warm, it felt as if it were feeding not just his body but his mind. Kale's eyes widened, and for a brief moment he forgot everything around him. That was when he heard a voice, sharp, commanding, and full of authority. "You dare?" Kale jumped. The fruit fell from his hands. Before him stood a tall alien woman, her skin a deep violet with markings that glowed faintly. Her eyes were like molten amber, staring into him with the intensity of a predator. She was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, and Kale realized immediately that she was not someone to be trifled with. I didn't mean to," Kale stammered, his words swallowed by the chaos of the bustling market. The woman's gaze swept over him, cold and precise. "You have eaten the sacred fruit of my clan," she said. Her voice carried authority, each word a command. "To make amends, you must prove your worth." Kale blinked. "Prove worth." Her lips curved into a small, stern smile. "Strength, intelligence, courage. Only then will you be forgiven." Kale had traveled across galaxies, faced strange creatures, and survived the void of space. Yet here he was, frozen in front of a single alien woman, trying not to look like a foolish human. The woman's name was Talira, and she introduced Kale to the strange customs of her clan. The Vitherans were a proud people, valuing strength and cunning above all. Their sacred fruit was not merely a delicacy, it was a symbol of trust. To eat it without permission was to challenge the very honor of the clan. And now, Kale was expected to prove himself worthy. At first, Kale thought he could simply apologize, perhaps buy another fruit and walk away. But Vitheran customs were not so simple. Talira explained that he must undertake the trial of the 7 steps, a series of challenges designed to test a being's mind, body, and spirit. Only by completing the trial could Kale restore his honor and earn the respect of her mother, the clan matriarch. Kale was nervous, but a spark of excitement ran through him. This was not just a test, it was an opportunity. Humanity had always been underestimated in the galaxy, often dismissed as fragile or weak. This was his chance to show what a human could do. The first challenge was physical. Kale was led to a massive arena filled with strange machines and shifting platforms. The Vitherans called it the Chamber of Motion. Its purpose was to test agility, endurance, and reflexes. Kale could see others who had attempted it before. Some were limp in exhaustion, others had failed entirely. He clenched his fists, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline. The trial began. Platforms rose and fell beneath him, forcing him to jump, dodge, and balance. Energy fields pulsed unpredictably, and Kale had to time every movement precisely. He stumbled once, nearly falling into a pit of glowing liquid, but he caught himself, refusing to give in. Hours, or perhaps minutes, time seemed distorted, passed. When the arena finally quieted, Kale's legs shook and sweat dripped down his face. Yet he had completed the first step. Talira's eyes, ever watchful, betrayed a hint of respect. The second challenge tested intelligence. Kale was led into a chamber filled with holographic puzzles and alien technology. Symbols rotated and shifted, demanding pattern recognition and quick thinking. Some puzzles required knowledge of physics and mathematics, while others demanded creativity. Kale's human ingenuity shone. He noticed patterns in the chaos, linking symbols across the room. One puzzle seemed impossible until he applied a simple human principle, observation. The room buzzed and shifted, confirming that he had solved it. He had passed the second step. The third challenge was strategy. Kale entered a simulation, a holographic battlefield where he commanded a small unit against a larger enemy force. The Vitherans believed that intelligence without foresight was useless. Kale directed his troops carefully, using diversion and misdirection, turning the numbers against him to his advantage. He anticipated moves before they happened, exploiting weaknesses that even the simulation hadn't expected. The simulation ended, signaling his success. By now, Kale's confidence was growing, but the challenges were far from over. Each step seemed harder than the last, testing not just his body or mind, but his spirit. Talira observed him silently, occasionally noting his reactions and adjusting the trials accordingly. Kale realized that she wasn't just a guide, she was a teacher, challenging him to exceed even his own expectations. The fourth challenge focused on courage. Kale was placed before a vast void filled with creatures he could barely comprehend. His task was to retrieve a glowing orb from the center. Every instinct told him to retreat, to respect the danger. But Kale remembered the humans who had ventured into the unknown before him, the explorers, the pioneers who faced impossible odds. With a deep breath, he stepped forward. The creatures lunged and swirled, testing his resolve. Each step demanded precision and fearlessness. By the time he grasped the orb, Kale's heart pounded, but he had proven his bravery. The fifth step tested endurance and patience. Kale was placed in a chamber where time seemed to stretch endlessly. He had to maintain focus while his mind was bombarded with illusions and distractions. Memories of home, of friends and family, of moments of doubt, all surfaced to test him. Kale centered himself, remembering that strength was not just physical or mental, it was emotional. He persevered, reaching the end of the chamber without succumbing to the illusions. The sixth challenge was empathy. Kale was faced with simulated beings in distress, each needing help. He had to prioritize, make choices, and act with compassion, even when it could cost him advantage in the trial. Kale understood quickly that the Vitherans valued not only strength but wisdom in judgment. His human intuition guided him. He helped where needed, negotiated solutions, and showed care without hesitation. This step was subtle but crucial. It revealed the heart behind the courage and intellect he had already demonstrated. Finally came the seventh step, the ultimate test. Kale was brought before Talira's mother, the matriarch of the clan. Her presence was overwhelming. She radiated authority and wisdom, the very embodiment of Vither strength. She spoke to him not with words but with thought, projecting images of her people, her hopes, and her fears. Kale understood that this was a test of understanding, of connection, and of trust. He projected his own thoughts, his own dedication, and his human spirit. The matriarch studied him for a long, tense moment. Then she nodded. Kale had proven himself, not merely through strength, intelligence, or courage, but by embodying what the Vitherans valued most: honor, perseverance, and respect for life. Talira's expression softened, a small smile gracing her features. The matriarch spoke aloud this time. "You have eaten what was sacred," she said, "and yet you have shown that humanity is worthy. You honor us and yourself. You are forgiven." Relief washed over Kale. He felt a pride he had never known, not in victory over a foe, but in proving the potential of his people. Humans had been underestimated across the galaxy, dismissed as fragile or simple, yet here he stood, respected by an alien clan centuries more advanced than Earth. Talira handed him a second fruit, identical to the one he had bitten into earlier. "For your efforts," she said, "a reminder that understanding comes before judgment and that respect is earned, not demanded." Kale held it carefully. The fruit shimmered in his hands, a symbol not of punishment, but of acceptance. He realized that this journey had taught him more than any battle or voyage ever could. It had shown him that humanity's true strength lay not only in muscle or mind, but in heart, courage, and the willingness to rise to challenges that others deemed impossible. As Kale left the arena, he looked back at the Vitherans watching him. He knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges, wonders, and beings who underestimated humans. But he also knew that, whatever came next, humanity could rise to meet it. And Kale smiled, feeling the thrill of adventure and the promise of proving that even the smallest human could stand tall among the stars. After completing the first 6 steps of the Trial of 7, Kale thought he had proven himself. Yet, as he left the arena, Talira's words reminded him that the true challenges were only beginning. "The trial shows what you are capable of," she said, "but how you use it among others will determine if you are truly worthy." Kale followed her through the twisting corridors of the Vitheran stronghold. The walls pulsed faintly with light, each hue shifting as though reflecting the emotions of those passing. It was both beautiful and disorienting, and Kale realized that even architecture here was alive with purpose. He felt eyes on him, dozens, perhaps hundreds, observing his every move. The Vitherans did not waste their judgment. Talira led him to a vast chamber filled with holographic star maps. Each map represented a different sector, showing clusters of planets, nebulae, and hidden territories. But this was not a lesson in navigation. It was a test of understanding. The matriarch of the clan required Kale to demonstrate how well he could assess situations, foresee dangers, and make strategic decisions. The galaxy is not merely a place to travel, Talira explained. It is a web of relationships, alliances, and conflicts. Strength alone does not suffice. You must know when to act, when to wait, and when to negotiate. Kale studied the holographic maps carefully. He noticed sectors marked with strange symbols, warnings, conflicts, or restricted zones. Others showed thriving civilizations, trade hubs, and potential allies. He realized that the trial now demanded something more complex, the ability to navigate diplomacy, intelligence, and subtle influence. For hours, Kale worked through the simulations. Some scenarios were straightforward. He had to protect a vulnerable colony from a raiding force. Others were subtler. He had to choose between rescuing one group of civilians or another, knowing that any choice would carry consequences. Kale's human ingenuity became his greatest asset. He found solutions that combined both caution and creativity, leveraging his understanding of patterns, probability, and resource management. Talira observed him quietly, occasionally nodding at his clever maneuvers. "You have learned quickly," she said, "but now you will face another test, one that will challenge not just your mind, but your character." Kale followed her to a new chamber. This one was filled with alien machinery that hummed and vibrated, its purpose unclear. At the center stood a large, crystalline sphere. Images of distant worlds rotated within it, flickering in and out of focus. "This is the sphere of reflection," Talira said. "It will show you not only your actions, but the consequences you cannot yet see. Many who fail here are blinded by ego or fear. You must see clearly and act wisely." Kale stepped closer, the crystalline surface reflecting his own face. He felt a strange sensation, as if the sphere could see into his mind. The images shifted, showing him alternate realities. Worlds devastated by war, planets thriving under cooperation, colonies destroyed by poor judgment. Each scene carried weight, as if Kale's decisions could ripple across time and space. The sphere was a challenge of perception. Kale realized that it was not merely predicting outcomes, it was testing his empathy and foresight. He had to make decisions considering not just survival, but the welfare of countless beings. His mind raced, balancing ethics, strategy, and risk. Hours passed. Kale experienced what felt like centuries in the sphere, each decision echoing across simulated galaxies. He made mistakes, corrected them, and learned from each failure. Finally, he emerged, exhausted but enlightened. Talira's expression held a trace of approval. "You understand more than many Vitherans twice your age," she said. But the trials did not end there. Next came the Chamber of Bonds, where Kale had to work alongside other Vitherans, some skeptical, some openly hostile. These challenges tested trust, collaboration, and leadership. Kale quickly realized that his human adaptability gave him an edge. He communicated clearly, suggested strategies, and respected the strengths of his team members. Slowly, their initial skepticism turned into grudging respect. In one exercise, they faced a complex maze filled with shifting obstacles. Kale coordinated the group, anticipating each trap and guiding them to safety. In another, they confronted a simulated enemy force. Kale recognized patterns the Vitherans had overlooked and directed a counterattack that secured victory. By the end, his team acknowledged his leadership, and Kale felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything he had experienced in his travels. As Kale's confidence grew, so did the scope of the trials. Talira explained that the next challenge would require him to leave the stronghold entirely. "You must venture into the unknown reach," she said. "There are no simulations there, no guidance. Only what you and your instincts can achieve." The unknown reach was a region of space filled with uncharted planets, drifting asteroid fields, and unstable star systems. Few Vitherans dared enter, and even fewer returned with knowledge. Kale prepared for the journey, equipping his small ship with the best technology the clan could provide. Talira gave him a small token, a crystal shard from the sacred fruit, symbolizing trust and guidance. Kale's ship launched into the void, the stars stretching into streaks as faster-than-light engines propelled him forward. He felt both excitement and unease. This was no longer a controlled trial. Every decision would carry weight, every choice could have real consequences. His first destination was a planet that the maps had marked with anomalies. As Kale approached, his instruments detected strange energy fluctuations. Landing on the rocky surface, he found remnants of an ancient civilization. Towers of unknown material reached into the sky, their surfaces etched with symbols he could not decipher. But as he explored, Kale sensed something more, a presence watching him, intelligent and cautious. Suddenly, a creature emerged. Tall and elegant with translucent skin and luminous veins, it moved silently, observing Kale. Unlike anything he had seen before, it seemed both curious and wary. Kale remembered the lessons from the Trial of Seven. He did not reach for weapons. Instead, he offered gestures of peace, speaking in simple, universal tones of friendship and respect. The creature tilted its head, analyzing him. Kale waited, understanding that patience was as powerful as strength. After tense moments, it responded, communicating in flashes of light and subtle vibrations. Kale realized that he was witnessing intelligence far beyond human comprehension, yet it was willing to interact because he had shown respect and calm. The encounter lasted hours, and Kale documented everything. He learned patterns, understood communication methods, and even discovered traces of advanced technology hidden in the ruins. This knowledge could benefit not only humans but countless civilizations. He returned to his ship, aware that his journey into the unknown reach had already expanded the scope of his understanding. Back aboard his vessel, Kale plotted a course to another anomaly. Each step into the unknown reach was both a risk and a lesson. He faced environmental hazards, asteroid storms, and strange gravitational anomalies, but his human ingenuity and determination carried him through. He adapted tools, altered navigation protocols, and used the ship in ways even Vitheran engineers might not have considered. As Kale navigated the stars, he reflected on the trials he had already faced. Each had tested a different aspect of his humanity: strength, intelligence, courage, empathy, and now ingenuity. The more he proved himself, the more he realized that humanity's potential was limitless. He was not merely surviving, he was thriving, discovering ways to rise above challenges no one else could face. Eventually, Kale returned to the Vitheran stronghold, bringing with him not just knowledge, but evidence of his ability to act in the unknown. Talira greeted him, her expression a mixture of curiosity and approval. The matriarch, who had remained distant until now, summoned him. "You have gone beyond what we expected," she said. "You have faced the unknown, respected our ways, and discovered truths that even we could not see. Humanity's spirit is unique. You honor it well." Kale bowed, understanding that this was not just praise for himself, but recognition of his people. Humans were often underestimated, dismissed as fragile or limited, yet here he stood, demonstrating courage, intelligence, and adaptability in ways few aliens could match. Talira smiled faintly. "There is one final stage remaining," she said. "A test not of skill, but of influence. You must now apply all you have learned to bring harmony, to unite disparate groups, and to prove that humanity's strength lies not just in survival, but in leadership and inspiration." Kale nodded, ready to face the last trial. He had faced the unknown, learned, adapted, and survived. Now it was time to demonstrate that humans could lead, guide, and uplift, not through force alone, but through vision and courage. As he prepared for the next stage, Kale felt a surge of determination. The galaxy was vast, filled with beings who doubted him and his kind. But he knew that each challenge, each step, brought him closer to showing the full potential of humanity. And with Talira and the Vitherans observing, he felt the weight of responsibility, not just for himself, but for the human spirit. The stars stretched endlessly before him, promising adventure, danger, and opportunity. And Kale smiled, knowing that whatever the trials, he was ready to rise to meet them. Kale had returned from the unknown reach with knowledge that even seasoned Vitherans would envy. But the final stage of his trial was unlike anything he had faced before. It was no longer about surviving or solving puzzles. It was about influence, bringing together beings from different clans, with conflicting goals, and uniting them toward a single purpose. Talira led Kale to a massive chamber at the heart of the stronghold. Holographic projections filled the space, showing star systems, trade routes, and territories controlled by different Vitheran clans. Conflicts flared across the galaxy, subtle and overt, involving trade disputes, territorial disagreements, and cultural misunderstandings. Humans had often been observers of such struggles, but Kale now had the opportunity to act as a mediator, and to prove that humanity's strength extended beyond physical and mental prowess to the ability to inspire and unite. The galaxy does not change through strength alone, Talira said. It changes when individuals can see beyond themselves, beyond their own clan, and act for a greater purpose. You will now demonstrate that you can do this. Kale examined the projections. He realized immediately that the Vitherans' conflicts were complex. Clans mistrusted one another, trade routes were blocked, and minor disputes had escalated into tensions that threatened wider war. Kale thought about humanity, how his people had often survived by finding creative solutions and building alliances despite limited resources. Perhaps the same principles could apply here. The first challenge involved a minor dispute between two clans over a shared mining planet. Kale was asked to intervene not by force but by negotiation. He studied the claims of each clan, listening to the grievances, asking questions, and observing body language. He noted that while both sides were defensive, there were shared interests they had overlooked. Using careful diplomacy, Kale proposed a shared mining schedule, ensuring both clans could benefit without conflict. At first, the clans resisted. They had centuries of mistrust ingrained into their culture. Kale remained calm, appealing to logic, fairness, and the potential for mutual gain. He demonstrated examples from human history, explaining how collaboration had allowed small groups to achieve greater success. Slowly, the resistance softened. By the time Kale left the chamber, both clans had agreed to a provisional arrangement. Talira nodded approvingly, noting that Kale's human perspective had uncovered solutions that even Vitherans had missed. The next task was more complex. Kale was introduced to a network of communication disputes. Multiple star systems had been cut off from one another due to sabotage, misinformation, and fear. Kale had to coordinate between factions that were suspicious of him, let alone each other. Using the skills he had learned from the trials, strategic thinking, empathy, patience, he began reconnecting these systems. He sent messages of reassurance, arranged meetings, and mediated disputes over resources and territory. It was grueling work. Kale faced constant skepticism, deliberate obstruction, and the weight of expectations from Talira and the matriarch. Yet he persevered. He understood that this was not a test of speed, but of consistency, judgment, and humanity's unique ability to inspire trust even among strangers. Meanwhile, Kale discovered that not all factions were willing to cooperate. One group, the Jalari, had been long isolated, suspicious of outsiders, and aggressively protective of their territory. Kale approached cautiously, observing their customs and learning their language. Unlike humans, the Jalari valued demonstrations of skill and respect over words alone. Kale realized he had to show not just diplomacy, but competence and courage. He invited the Jalari to witness simulations of his earlier trials, the strategic battles, the problem-solving, the acts of leadership. He shared insights from his journey into the unknown reach, showing how he had navigated dangerous planets and communicated with unknown intelligences. Gradually, the Jalari began to respect him. They saw that Kale's strength was not arrogance, but action, empathy, and intelligence combined. By the end of the week, they agreed to a temporary alliance, surprising even Talira. As Kale worked to unite the clans, he began noticing patterns in the galaxy. Many disputes stemmed from misunderstandings and lack of communication. If he could apply his human principles, collaboration, trust-building, and transparent reasoning, he could prevent wider conflicts. Kale coordinated a summit among the major clans, using holographic projections and simulations to model potential outcomes of cooperation versus continued conflict. The summit was tense. Representatives from different clans glared at one another, suspicion heavy in the air. Kale opened the discussion by acknowledging the grievances of each group, emphasizing shared goals rather than differences. He presented strategies that were fair, equitable, and mutually beneficial. He encouraged dialogue, not argument, and subtly guided the participants toward compromise. Hours passed. Kale's patience was tested. At one point, a heated dispute threatened to collapse the entire session. Kale remained calm, reminding the delegates of the larger picture, the dangers they all faced if they continued to fight. Drawing on his experience in the unknown reach, he suggested joint projects where clans could cooperate to solve real problems. Slowly, the atmosphere changed. Distrust turned into cautious optimism, skepticism into curiosity. Finally, after days of negotiation, the clans reached a preliminary agreement. Trade routes would reopen, shared territories would be managed equitably, and communication networks would be reestablished. Kale's influence had created tangible change, and Talira's eyes reflected pride and amazement. Even the matriarch acknowledged that Kale had surpassed expectations. But Kale's journey was not yet complete. As he prepared to return to the stronghold, he received a warning from one of the allied clans. A new threat loomed in the far reaches of the sector. A rogue faction, unknown in the Vitharan records, had begun disrupting trade and attacking colonies. Kale realized that this was the ultimate test, not simply managing disputes, but protecting life and demonstrating leadership on a larger scale. Kale gathered information and devised a plan. He contacted the newly allied clans, proposing a coordinated response to the rogue faction. Using strategic insights from his earlier trials, he allocated resources efficiently, predicted enemy movements, and prepared contingencies for unexpected developments. When the rogue faction attacked, Kale was ready. He led a combined force, not as a commander seeking glory, but as a mediator coordinating strengths, leveraging human ingenuity, and empowering allies to act decisively. The rogue faction was formidable, but Kale's strategies outmaneuvered them. His ability to adapt, anticipate, and inspire cooperation turned potential disaster into victory. The aftermath was striking. Colonies that had been under threat were saved. Trade routes reopened. Vitharan clans, previously divided by mistrust, began working together. Kale had not only survived the trial but transformed the galaxy around him through leadership, vision, and the human spirit. Returning to the stronghold, Kale was greeted by Talira and the matriarch. The matriarch's expression was solemn, yet her words carried deep respect. "You have not only proven your strength, intelligence, and courage," she said. "You have shown that humanity's power lies in its ability to connect, to inspire, and to act for the greater good. Few beings can achieve what you have accomplished in a single cycle." Kale felt a surge of pride, but he remained humble. He understood that the trial had tested more than skill. It had tested character, resilience, and the capacity to uplift others. Humanity, he realized, had the potential to rise not merely through force, but through ingenuity, empathy, and courage combined. Talira handed him a ceremonial token, a crystal crafted from the same material as the sacred fruit. It glowed faintly, a symbol of trust, respect, and achievement. Kale understood that he had earned not just forgiveness, but recognition and honor. He looked out across the chamber at the Vitharans who had once doubted him, now observing with curiosity, respect, and even admiration. Kale realized that the galaxy was full of beings who underestimated humans, who saw only fragile bodies or limited experience. Yet here he stood, having navigated challenges that even seasoned Vitharans had avoided, having united clans, and having demonstrated that humanity's strength was unique and powerful. Kale's journey had changed him. He had learned to combine intelligence with intuition, courage with empathy, and strategy with humanity. He had faced the unknown, bridged divides, and proved that humans could rise to challenges that others deemed impossible. As he prepared for the final stage of the trial, Kale reflected on everything he had achieved. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers and opportunities. Yet he felt ready, not just as a human among aliens, but as a representative of humanity's potential. Whatever trials lay ahead, Kale knew that humans could adapt, overcome, and inspire. The matriarch approached him, her eyes steady and unwavering. "The final step is simple, yet profound," she said. "You must now embody what you have learned, not in isolation, but in a manner that will leave a lasting mark on our people. This is the true test, to ensure that humanity's strength endures not just in deeds, but in legacy." Kale nodded, understanding that his greatest challenge was not a test of skill, strategy, or courage, but a vision. He would have to create a lasting impact, a demonstration of humanity's value that would resonate across the galaxy. As he looked toward the stars, Kale felt a deep sense of purpose. He was no longer merely surviving trials, he was shaping the future. Humanity's potential, underestimated by many, was now visible to those who had once doubted. And Kale smiled, knowing that whatever lay ahead, he had proven that humans could rise, adapt, and inspire, even among the most advanced alien civilizations. Kale stood at the summit of the Vitheran stronghold, the crystalline light of distant stars streaming through the windows. The galaxy was alive beneath him, vibrant with countless worlds, each with its own story, its own struggles, and its own potential. He had faced trials that tested every aspect of his humanity: strength, intelligence, courage, empathy, and leadership. But the final challenge required more than any of those. It was now about legacy, about leaving a mark that would endure long after he returned to Earth. About ensuring that humans were no longer underestimated, that their ingenuity, resilience, and spirit were acknowledged across the stars. The matriarch entered the chamber, her presence commanding yet calm. "Kale," she said, "you have proven yourself in every way. But the final trial is not about proving what you can do alone. It is about what you can inspire in others. You must create a lasting influence that will bind our clans and show the galaxy that humanity's strength is unique." Kale thought for a moment, recalling everything he had learned in his journey. The clans had begun to trust each other under his guidance. The rogue faction had been defeated through collaboration, but lasting influence required more than temporary alliances. He needed to establish systems, structures, and principles that would endure. He began by addressing the Vitheran Council, representatives of all clans he had mediated. He spoke clearly, calmly, and with conviction. "We have faced division for too long," he said. "Conflict has cost lives, wasted resources, and delayed progress. But we have also seen what cooperation can achieve. We can build a network trade, communication, and defense that benefits every clan, not one but all." The council listened, some skeptical, some intrigued. Kale continued, drawing on human history. He shared examples of small communities overcoming hardship through collaboration, of societies that advanced because individuals trusted and respected one another. His words were simple, but they carried meaning. Kale did not lecture, he guided. He demonstrated through logic, empathy, and shared purpose. Over the following weeks, Kale worked tirelessly. He helped establish interclan councils, communication networks, and emergency response teams. He taught Vitheran's methods of resource allocation and conflict resolution that emphasized fairness and cooperation. Each initiative reflected human ingenuity, creative problem-solving, adaptability, and the ability to consider multiple perspectives. Yet Kale knew that enduring change required cultural respect as much as strategy. He immersed himself in Vitheran traditions, learning their histories, ceremonies, and social structures. He incorporated these traditions into his plans, ensuring that his human perspective complemented, rather than replaced, their culture. The Vitherans began to see him not as an outsider, but as a partner, someone who understood their values and amplified them. The matriarch observed all of Kale's efforts with careful attention. She noticed not only his competence but his humility. He did not seek glory, only results. He did not demand recognition, only trust. By the time the interclan networks were fully operational, Kale had not only solved immediate problems, but had created structures that would allow clans to self-govern, collaborate, and respond to challenges for generations. But Kale's final test was yet to come. Intelligence reports indicated that remnants of the rogue faction were regrouping on a distant, uncharted planet. Their attacks, though diminished, threatened the fragile alliance he had built. Kale understood that theory alone would not suffice. He had to lead action, demonstrating that humans could inspire unity even in the heat of conflict. He convened the allied forces, coordinating strategies with clan leaders who had once been rivals. Kale's approach was not authoritarian. He listened, adjusted plans, and empowered leaders to make decisions within the framework he had created. The result was a fluid, adaptable force that could respond to unexpected developments, a living example of human ingenuity in action. As they approached the rogue planet, Kale observed the enemy's movements. Their ships were heavily armed, but their tactics were predictable. Kale's experience with simulations, patterns, and adaptive thinking allowed him to anticipate their attacks. Using the Alliance's diverse capabilities, he orchestrated a strategy that minimized risk while maximizing effectiveness. The battle was intense. Energy beams tore through space, ships maneuvered with precision, and the rogue faction fought fiercely. Kale remained calm, adjusting tactics on the fly. He had learned that leadership was not about personal heroics, it was about enabling others to act effectively. Clan leaders followed his guidance, humans and Vitherans alike coordinating seamlessly. When the dust settled, the rogue faction was defeated. Their remaining forces surrendered, impressed by the unity and effectiveness of the alliance. Kale had not only prevented further destruction, but demonstrated that humans could lead with intelligence, courage, and empathy, qualities that transcended species. Returning to Vithera, Kale was greeted not as a visitor, but as a symbol of what humanity could contribute to the galaxy. Talira approached him, a proud smile on her face. "You have done what few could even imagine," she said. "Your efforts have transformed not only our clans, but the way we see humans." The matriarch joined them, her gaze steady. "Kale, you have fulfilled the final step. You have proven that humans possess strength beyond the physical, courage beyond the battlefield, and intelligence beyond computation. But most importantly, you have proven that humans can inspire, unite, and leave a lasting legacy." Kale felt a deep sense of satisfaction, but also humility. He had achieved much, but it was not for himself. It was for his people, for the Vitherans, and for the potential of cooperation across the galaxy. He understood that this legacy would endure, not because of one person, but because humans had demonstrated the ability to foster unity and progress. The matriarch presented him with a final honor, a ceremonial crystal carved from the same sacred material as the fruit that had started it all. It shimmered with light that seemed alive, a symbol of respect, trust, and recognition. Kale accepted it, understanding its significance. It represented not victory, but the acknowledgement that humanity had a role among the stars. In the following months, Kale continued to work with the Vitherans. He documented the structures he had created, ensuring that future leaders could continue the alliances and strategies he had implemented. He trained diplomats, strategists, and leaders, teaching human methods of problem-solving, negotiation, and collaboration. Through Kale's efforts, the galaxy began to shift. Clans that had been rivals became trading partners. Conflicts that might have escalated into war were resolved through dialogue and shared goals. Humans, once considered fragile and limited, were now seen as beings capable of ingenuity, courage, and leadership on a galactic scale. Kale often reflected on the journey. It had begun with a single mistake, biting into a sacred fruit, but it had grown into something far greater. He had faced tests of strength, intelligence, courage, empathy, and leadership. He had ventured into the unknown, negotiated with diverse civilizations, and created lasting systems of cooperation. In every step, humanity had been underestimated, but each time Kale had proven its worth. He looked at Talira, who had been both a guide and a teacher. "I could not have done this without your guidance," he said. Talira shook her head. "You did this with your own spirit." "We only provided the framework. Humanity's potential was always yours to realize," the matriarch added, "and now the galaxy has seen it. Humanity is no longer just a distant, fragile species. It is a force that can unite, protect, and inspire. This is your legacy." Kale felt a warmth of pride and purpose. He had not sought fame or glory, but he had created something enduring. The alliances, networks, and strategies he had implemented would continue long after he returned to Earth. Humans had shown that they could rise above limitations, solve impossible problems, and make a meaningful impact on civilizations far older and more advanced than their own. As Kale prepared to depart Vithera, he looked at the stars. Each one represented a world of possibilities, challenges, and discoveries. He knew that his journey was only the beginning, but he also knew that humans had proven themselves worthy companions in the vastness of space. He thought of Earth, of his people, and of the countless opportunities ahead. Kale understood that humanity's true strength lay not only in individual achievements, but in the ability to inspire, unite, and endure. Across the galaxy, the legacy of one human's courage and ingenuity would ripple outward, touching lives and civilizations for generations to come. And with that thought, Kale's ship lifted from Vithera's surface. The stars stretched before him, endless and brilliant, a canvas for adventure, challenge, and human potential. He smiled, knowing that wherever the galaxy led, humanity was ready, and that even a single human could leave a mark that would be remembered across the stars. Kale's journey had begun with curiosity, mistake, and challenge. It had evolved into triumph, respect, and legacy. Humanity, underestimated and overlooked for centuries, now had a voice among the stars. And Kale, the one who had bitten the sacred fruit, had become the bridge between worlds, the symbol of human potential, and the embodiment of what it meant to rise above limits, adapt, and inspire. The galaxy awaited.